Alright, folks, and welcome back to the channel. It's time for post-match reaction following St Johnstone 1, Celtic 0. An absolutely disgraceful performance from a Celtic team. With the greatest respect to St Johnstone, Celtic should not be losing to St Johnstone at all. No matter if we've wrapped up the league or not. We've still not wrapped it up, by the way. So, anyway, I'm joined by Alistair to go over that. How are we doing, Alistair, after what was a disgraceful performance?
Put it this way, I'm glad I wasn't there for a change. But I just can't believe what it was. I'm going to call players out of here because I've bit my tongue for the last 2 months, and I think the players, and you could argue the coaching staff and the manager, the whole football department attitude has stank the last couple of months.
Aye, and you know what I'm like. I've to be honest, I've been like this for a few months. I just don't like how after the Christmas break how we come back. I thought we come back with a real complacency. And as you know, I don't. Unlike you, Alistair, I don't bite my tongue. But
You can't. You're like a big Doberman.
but no, that performance today, you know, and all credits to St Johnstone. I do that every
They
time.
deserved it. I don't want to
Completely
sound like
deserved it.
Barry, but they deserved it.
No, they deserved it. Completely out. Thought us bossed us the whole game, to be honest. It was an easy day out for St Johnstone against the so-called soon-to-be champions. Didn't look like champions to me out there today at all, and I've not looked like champions in my opinion over the last 3 months. We've dropped 16 points from Christmas.
Aye.
Which is just unbelievable. It's not good enough. And I'd understand if this was a freak result, but I go into away games now thinking, don't know if we'll get the result here. Instead of me going, right, Johnstone at home, St Johnstone at home, no, sorry, St Johnstone away should be getting the result. And I completely understand. Celtic aren't entitled to beat everybody, right? I'm not that self-entitled. We aren't, but we should be beating most of the teams in the league. And it's the way we're losing games, the lack of fight, the lack of form, everything about it. It's nothing to do with technical ability. We know these players are getting it. It's the fight. Has Johnstone get better technical players than Celtic? Of course they haven't. But they've got players that will fight. And what did I say on the pre-match? I said St Johnstone won't be up for this because they need to scrimp and scrap for every single point because they found themselves in a relegation zone.
Well, it was through a dive for them the day.
Aye, and it did look like that. It looked like they had everything to play for. We had fuck all to play for. We just wanting to wait for our holidays. Well, no, you have got something to play for. You've got a treble to play for. We were ironically playing the same team in 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
and they're just going to set up the same way. So that they're just going to set up the same way. Alistair, team selection. It was the same front three. The midfield, Tate, Engels and McGregor. And then the back four was Johnstone, Carter Vickers, Trusty and Jeffrey Sloop, and then Sinisal in goals. I don't think it matters what team you played out there. I just think it was a complete disdain, lack of fight from a team that...
Hunger will always beat talent every day of the week.
And people might sit there and go, look at you, listen to you, or, you know, when I put you win a treble. I don't care. I want us to win the treble, but your job is to go and put a performance on for those supporters. We had 3 stands up there.
And you've let them all doing.
Aye, exactly.
A pop.
Aye, £34. You know, no effect. And I'm not going to sit here and go on and on and on, like, oh, you know, I would rather be 13 points clear than obviously maybe in the situation our rivals are in, but we've got standards as well. No matter how clear, you could be 45 points clear. I don't care. You should not be losing in that manner. See if we've had hundreds of shots and the goalkeeper's had a blinder. Fair enough.
As I call it, the the David Maskell type of game in Barcelona, the Fraser Foster game at the New Camp, or the
Aye,
Fraser
something like that.
Foster game at the Cup final. But let's be honest, guys. We
If there needs to do
didn't
it.
we didn't have with a couple of wild thoughts, and see, to be honest, and I'm going to betray myself here, Nicholas Kuhn, I'll pay your fare.
We'll go into players in a minute.
Your fare.
We'll go into players in a minute. Alistair, the goal, the goal, it's just and I've noticed that as well. We give away some stupid fouls. You know, and that's the one thing you don't give a St Johnstone or Dundee or Ross County. You don't give them free kicks in those positions because they've got the height. The first free kick, we were given a warning by the same player. We don't adhere to it, and then it's a really, really good header, and it's you're just like, right, Celtic, over to you, and we just look devoid of ideas, and that's where I think the management team come into question here, because it was just like, oh, pass the ball back and forward, we'll score anyway.
Aye.
Where are we
Complete.
at? Where are we actually getting going with Brendan Rodgers' tactics? He's obsessed with possession, but there's a difference. There's pointless possession, which we're doing at the moment, but there's also possession with purpose. Where's the possession with purpose that we've seen in the first 6 months of the season? So that's you take the easy option and say, oh well, Brendan Rodgers and substitute. That's not the whole situation for me, because it doesn't matter even if he has substitute. If you're playing with pace, you'll get chances.
Yeah.
The lack of pace is just the lack of care, and that's when I'll blame the players. That's when I will blame the players. The lack of care is just unbelievable. The lack of Nicholas Kuhn's just getting, get out muscled and he's flopping about the ground. You're like, get up. Welcome to Scottish football. This is why so many players come up here and struggle, because they can't hack it when a player gets physical. Dre Wright absolutely bossed him the day.
Very right, I know, man.
But yet again, physicality, that can't go unnoticed in football. How good, if you're a physical side, that you can get at a team. And that's the thing. Alistair, I'm going to play the manager's comments. I don't usually, but he said apparently had some decent amount to say. The clips for Sky Sports, so credit to them. But I'll get a play.
How do you assess the performance and the result today?
Well, I think both very, very disappointing. Listen, I want to give the credit to St Johnstone, because I thought from the first minute their fight was better than ours. You know, they obviously desperate for the points. We should be desperate for the points, but they made it really, really difficult for us. We just started off too soft at the beginning, and obviously we have chances, and in particular second half, lots of pressure, lots of really good moments, but no, we were really, really disappointed.
Does that surprise you?
No, it shouldn't. You know, we got three sides of the ground today, all expectant. But I think what it's telling me over the course of this season, especially this part of the season, is that expectation versus the underdog, and the players that can cope with that here at a club like Celtic, because it's easy when you're the underdog and you're playing in Champions League games and you're fighting and running. Playing at Celtic is about being able to deal with both, and the expectation and how we've started games, especially over this last little period, hasn't been good enough. But that tells me something as a coach. So no, not overly surprised.
How do you rectify that then?
Well, that's something that we take away and analyse. The players have been fantastic up until this point of the season, but when you're presented with an opportunity like that, you have to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to really show that you have that will and that want right from the first whistle to get the points. And it was only whenever we went behind that came about. So I'll analyse the game again, but it won't differ too much from what I'm thinking now and what I've seen in a number of games.
I analyse the game and probably not do much different, to be honest with you. The big thing from that press conference there, or the post match, whatever it's called, is the fact that Brendan Rodgers has just basically said that there's players who are in their comfort zone. It's pretty obvious to see, and then goes like that. It's all about mentality and getting yourself up for these games. By the way, we laughed at Barry Ferguson yesterday for saying the exact same thing about Rangers. That's exactly Brendan Rodgers has just completely copied Barry Ferguson, what he said there. Because Barry Ferguson went like that when they get beat off Hibs yesterday. Or, it's easy to get your... And it's correct. It is. Both of them are correct. It's easy to get yourself up for your Europa League games or your Champions League games. So, and that's what Celtic have been good at the last few years. And for the first half of the season, getting yourself up for the fight in these games. I mean, if there is players that are not, well, at the end of the day, Brendan Rodgers is the manager. He's the guy in the dressing room, and the coaching staff are to blame for that then. Because you should be getting players like that. There's players like Callum McGregor in there, James Forrest, and even Anthony Ralston, who know about it and know how we got for these games. So what are they doing then? If there's players that don't get up, we've just admitted that there's players in there that are not getting up and maybe in their comfort zone. And you could probably pick out 2 or 3 who he's talking about. Nicholas Kuhn, you're probably talking about him. Hatate, I think sometimes he's in his comfort zone. Engels sometimes I think as well. I'm a big Arne Engels fan, and I think he's still got a lot to obviously learn. But at the end of the day, you're the manager. You need to be getting your team up for that. So if there's players not up for it, you need to hang me it. And then what is the alternative? We just completely strip the team on for the game against Kilmarnock. Strip them of what? Because we've not got a lot of depth.
And not only that, what I said about the Champions League, I agree with, but he basically said without saying, he's a big football snobs. Oh, we'll get ready for the big game, but because we're cruising this league, and we are, Josh, but we are cruising it. But guys like me, you have paid money to watch it, and have been giving sod all. Up
And
at
if that, because for instance, see next season, say we were in the same situation, it's just going to happen. Every time you've got a points gap, it's just going to happen like this. Not acceptable. You're a professional football player. Your job is to fucking go out there and play to your best ability, no matter the situation you're in. And that's like a doctor got at. Oh well, I done a really good operation. I'm just going to half-arse this one.
I'm just going to. But so if this boy's got a double fracture, I'll just fix half of it.
Aye, they've half-arsed it. And Brendan Rodgers, why is it taking to April when this has been like this for a few months? They've not kicked their arse since Bayern Munich. Nicholas Kuhn has not kicked his backside since Bayern Munich, and I've tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, but that was shameful today from Nicholas Kuhn.
I don't know if you remember this, Josh, one incident in particular. 4 times he ran the ball at the park. At the park. Nobody need him. No, if that was Lewis Palmer or a guy with no credit in the bank, we'd be ripping him to shreds.
Aye, we're ripping the piss at him.
Aye.
We're absolutely ripping him. But I mean, I think also, you can question the players all you want, but I think at the end of the day, these are questions of the manager as well. I think
open season. When you lose to the bottom of the league, and I don't care who it is, it could be the best season ever. There were 52 points between us and St Johnstone at the start of the play today.
You wouldn't think that if you watched this game for the first. If you watched this was the first game of the season you watched, you didn't know the table. You wouldn't think that. You think, maybe the two of them are up neck and neck with each other.
But
But then in the second half, Celtic didn't have a shot on target to the 80th minute.
I know.
I mean, what, 2 shots on target in a second half? That's just ridiculous. So
Aye.
that's the thing is,
That's
St.
the moment
Johnstone comfortable against the soon-to-be champions.
and
Nah,
we take too long to get the ball in 1.5.
but that's the managerial thing as well. They're told to play like that. You're not telling me that they're like, oh well, there's 10 minutes to play. I'll just dally about with the ball instead of putting it in the box. They're told to play like that. There's going to need to they're going to really need to work hard at pre-season and go like that. Right, what are we doing? Because our corners are terrible as well. Set pieces are terrible. We don't do anything with them.
No go a set piece coach. That's another.
Aye, Ian Crocker, we got a free kick in a good position. Ian Crocker says, "Oh, it's a good position for Celtic," and I just laughed, and I thought,
You clearly don't watch us every week.
I'm like, nah.
It
I
was
just
when
laughed.
about 2007 when we talk about it, but that's
It's not even just a good free kick taker. It's actually maybe putting the ball in the box and maybe like letting St. Johnstone. Sometimes just let them think about. Give them something to think about.
I even got no. Tell you the thing that really annoyed me, and this is where I'm going to criticise the manager. Right, it's when I go down, fair dues, right? But he decides to take Maeda off. Right? Why not keep the 2 of them?
That was
Why you
mental.
don't? Why you
That was
don't?
mental. I mean, you're chasing a goal, and to be honest, there was more players. I don't think Maida did his best game. I think it was pretty terrible, to be honest. But at least with Maida, you're going to get the pressing on it. I thought Jota should have been hooked before Maida should have been. I thought Jota was pretty poor.
Jota didn't fancy it the day you could tell.
And if that is the big case about players not fancy it, then we need to. That is a big issue. Because you play for Celtic Football Club, just like, you play for any of the 2 Glasgow teams, Celtic or Rangers, you should be up for it. Because you're playing for one of the biggest teams in fucking world football. So, this is when we've been hearing across the city, players aren't up for it and all that. I don't want that associated with Celtic either. Because
the only difference between us, and I said this to you on the phone when you said I'm sending you the link for the podcast. I said, if you think about it, the only difference between us and Rangers at the moment is we 2 good quarters.
Aye.
It's been better at best.
And they've probably had the worst season in history, to be honest with you. I think it is generally that bad. But I'm not going to say that we've won the league just because how poor Rangers are, but it's fucking helped.
Well, put it this way, it's no help us in the respect we're not getting pushed. And let's be honest.
No, I'm not having that. No, seriously, you play for Celtic. You could be fit. You do it until the league is done. Mathematically, all season, it's nothing to do with being pushed. At the end of the day, you can't just turn it on. As you've said to me as well, you can't just turn it on and off as a switch. So what happens if we nearly get caught last season doing that? All complacent, then Clement come in, got a tune at them, and then we're shitting ourselves. You can't just do that. I don't care. I'm sorry. I don't care about the whole. It's no helping when they're being pushed. You play for Celtic Football Club, and you played handsomely for doing it. God's sake! I would honestly. What they get paid on it. I mean, we're asking for players to go on big bumper contracts. Our manager is paid £4 million a year.
Talking about bumper contracts, I have noticed since Alistair Johnson signed the contract, he's been atrocious.
The whole team just looked dysfunctional. Ever since January, they just look absolutely dysfunctional. And I thought like Munich would have pushed them maybe, and they would But then they've just, we're back to domestic football, we'll just turn it off again. You can't do that.
Well,
You've
funny
still
enough,
got a treble to win.
Nicholas Kuhn's last goal, I think, was Munich.
Munich.
Funny enough.
And I think he said two assists since then.
I knew it. One of them was last week.
And then I don't know what the other one was, but 2 assists since Munich.
Aye.
Which is, I'm sorry. So I don't subscribe to that thing of not being pushed. Don't get me wrong, I did expect a drop off, a slight drop off, because it is human nature. I get that. They're no robots. But that this is more than a slight drop off. This is falling off a cliff.
This is basically switched it off and put the goals away, and we'll see in July.
And I thought maybe with that international break, a bit of refresh. I thought against Hearts we were decent. I thought, right, fair enough. And then that today, it's like, see this
One good, one bad week.
Aye, these last two quarters, it's been like, a bit of optimism, and then it's just like, and I'm not trying to sound pure to your face. I know we're top league, we're going to win a treble, but the performances don't look like a treble winning team.
Do you know what it's like? It's like, you know how when you, I never thought I'd mention this on this podcast. You know when you buy a box of chocolates and it's a variety pack and you open the box and you don't know what you're getting? That's what Celtic are like at the minute.
Right, exactly. And if people think I'm being too harsh, I'm angry, then you can tell me that, but I don't really mind.
Look at the facts.
Aye.
Since the 2nd of January, we've dropped 16 points.
Aye. And I think if a Rangers team had any sort of wits about us, they would have catched us by now, to be honest with you.
They certainly would have closed the gap.
No, they would have closed it exponentially, I think. They would have near enough caught us, I think. Because if you look at it, they've beat us twice in that spell. That's 6 points. We've dropped points. St Johnstone, we've dropped points. Hibs, we've dropped points. Dundee, we've dropped Dundee United. We probably should have dropped points at St Mirren. We were lucky we didn't get a penalty against us. We've dropped points. We're just dropping points everywhere. It's just we're just gaining points out, and I'm like, nah. You are going to win the league. I don't care. You should be trying to sprint over that line. This is just stumbling.
It's standard, mate. And see if anybody comes on here and says, he's entitled. No, we'll get standards.
Aye, no, I don't. The entitled word seems to get moved around a lot, but anyway, Alistair, in terms of obviously we move on to Kilmarnock, where we cannot win the league next weekend, because we fucked that. We could if again relying on Rangers to drop more points, which I mean, if you're
the default.
If we're going to win a league with that, then it's not acceptable. But anyway, we're just going to move on to Kilmarnock. But I do think there's going to need to be serious questions of the manager, and especially the players. And I think the manager has pretty much said that. And I think they're going to have a few harsh words at times, because it's it's these performances are become like that. But that was a comfortable afternoon for St Johnstone, and all credit to St Johnstone, completely deserved the result. And the thing is, as well, Simo Valacari basically told us post-match what they were going to do.
You knew what they were going to do. They were going to start quick, try and punch a goal, and then defend for our lives.
He basically said, we're going to try and nick the ball up, but we're also at times sitting in a low block. That's exactly what they've done. They bought fouls. They frustrated Celtic, and Celtic just couldn't do anything. There was a point where I think Engels could have shot, and in the second half, and he's passing it about, and they end up nicking the ball. I'm like, what are you doing? Just shoot.
I know.
But anyway, we need to move on to Kilmarnock. I'm not going to ask you man the match, because for obvious reasons, I think everybody was just terrible.
The three stands that turned up.
Exactly. But the wait for the title goes on. But I think there's going to need to be major questions of the players and the management team after that, because that was just embarrassing. But I'm going to wrap it up there for the post-match reaction. As I say, we'll be back during the week with some sort of video, and then also we'll have the build-up to that game against Kilmarnock next weekend. Until then, we'll speak to you later, and hail hail.
Hail, hail.